Welcome to It Happened on the Job, our podcast for conversations with contractors. My name is Mike Fisher. With me, as always, is my colleague, Brian Summers.
How you doing?
And our guest today is Edgar. Brian, why don't you introduce our guest?
Edgar Deleon from FedVet Construction. How you doing, Edgar?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Yourself?
Very good, thank you. If you could, just give us kind of a breakdown and intro on what you guys do and how you got started in the business.
Sure, of course. So, my name is Edgar Deleon, and I'm president of FedVet Construction. We are a general contractor, federal contractor, that is, and we mostly perform on design build and design bid build, tenant improvement project for the VA hospital, and some work on the local bases here, Camp Pendleton Naval Base, San Diego. And we started business in 2016. I retired from the military. It's a veteran-owned business. I retired from the military. The last 3 years of my career, I spent at NAFAC in the procurement office, and that's where I was introduced to federal contracting. I saw an opportunity there. I met my partner, and things were just happened at the right time. I was at the right place. I was in retirement, and we decided to open up FedVet, and here we are now.
That's awesome. So, and if I understand correctly, by the way, thank you for your service.
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
Mike and I are huge fans of the military and what you guys do. So,
thank you.
So I saw on your website, it looks like that you were actually in construction in the Navy, right? You're a Navy Seabee, is that correct?
Yes. I joined the military in '96. My next door neighbor was my recruiter, and he convinced me to go to the Navy. But the one thing that I told him, and I made it clear, was I did not want to go on a ship. And so the day
hard to do?
That's pretty oxymoronic, right? Like to go into the Navy but not be on a ship.
Yeah, and I was just clear. I did not want to go on a ship. Did not want to go on a submarine. If there was anything else I can involve myself with, I do it. And his recruiting partner said, well, I'm a Seabee. I'm going to introduce you to the Seabees. And it was a fit. It was a fit. I went to utilities men's school, which was basically a plumber. So I'm a plumber by trade. And I never saw a ship in my whole 20 years.
That's amazing.
So I got what I wanted.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
And
go ahead.
And so, yes. And so I spent most of my career, say about 15 years of my career in Port Hueneme, California. And from there, I deployed numerous countries. After 9/11, of course, it was Iraq, Afghanistan, and that's where we got involved with contingency construction.
Got it. Okay. And so you guys have been in business for the last 4 years, since 2016. How?
Yes, last 4 years.
A question we've been asking is how are you finding, especially in this kind of skilled shortage of labor
too, yeah.
And kind of what you guys are doing, being so specialized, how are you finding guys to hire? Like, do you understand what I'm asking?
Are you finding them out of school? Are you hiring military guys specifically because they know the area and the types of jobs?
That is a great question and one of our challenges. You guys know as well as we do, there's a labor shortage.
Right.
Our challenge is to find both management and the actual skill trades. Right now, what we do is reach out to the AGC. We are a member of the AGC, the local
the Association of
office
General
here in San
Contractors,
Diego.
correct? Yeah.
Yes. And so it's a combination of the AGC and the local unions. Perhaps they have folks that are no longer wanting to be part of the union and want to go into the contractor realm in that sense. We haven't yet been able to hire folks right out of a trade school. Most of the trade schools are union based, so in exchange for their trade school, they have to perform or they have to be involved with the union for X number of years. That and on some of the state jobs, we do have a requirement for apprentices. So the local apprenticeship program here. So it's a combination of those three. But again, it's a challenge, and we do foresee that in the next couple of years of labor shortage.
Yeah. How's the business going though? In terms of you have the labor shortage, as obviously is a challenge. You guys been in business for the last 4 years. Are you guys growing? Are you stable? Where's that at?
Sure. So by default, being involved in the VA, being involved in the federal contracting, we found ourselves with the labor shortage, but it's actually, it actually helped us in the sense that it did not affect us. We are a general contractor, and so what we found ourselves doing the beginning of last year and even until now, is subcontracting most of our skilled labor trades. So, for example, drywall, but we no longer do the drywall, and again, that's a combination of the labor shortage and also the size of the project. It just made more sense for us to subcontract that type of work out.
That makes sense. Okay. How does the bidding process go, especially when you're working with a VA?
Yeah, talk to our listeners about how hard that is, or how much more. What are the regulations like in the in the job bidding process and throughout the completion of the work? Dealing with the military versus somebody that's doing just normal TI work in a commercial building in Irvine or something.
Sure, of course. So, depending on the type of contract that is and the dollar value, 95% of the procurement, federal procurement, when it comes to labor, falls under the Davis-Bacon wages. So, if it's construction, it's almost guaranteed to be Davis-Bacon wages, and it's basically it's a set of wages that the government has in place. Is a Davis-Bacon Act. I think it's 1933. Don't quote me on that.
You're being recorded now. It's in the history books.
All right. But the Davis-Bacon wages is what drives our proposal numbers. It's a set of wages, which includes all your fringe benefits, and that if a contractor one day said, "Hey, I want to do federal work now," that could be a challenge if he doesn't understand the Davis-Bacon Act, or if he doesn't know how to follow that, that guideline.
Right.
As far as the procurement, the overall procurement, it's pretty structured in the sense there's maybe 50 forms on one procurement that you would have to sign, read, acknowledge. But the biggest one I would say is the Davis-Bacon numbers.
Yeah, just understanding those when you're putting your bid together.
Yes.
Well, Edgar, I think we had talked last week a little bit and kind of mentioned about some crazy stories that you guys have had to deal with out on the job. And you mentioned that you had a couple in mind, and wanted to kind of jump on that and see, you're obviously out in the field. We talk to contractors daily. And part of the impetus of this show was these stories that we're hearing on a daily basis, and just thinking we need to let people hear some of these things. So, you're in a very unique field in terms of what you guys do. And so
I'm sure some of the things you see as well.
Exactly. So I got to imagine that there's something that's, and there's maybe several stories that are out there, whether it's been in your 20 years in the service or even outside of that with FedVet. Fill us in, let us know maybe give us a good story and what you guys have had to deal with.
Wow. Well, if I want to tell you a good story, it's going to be over a drink or two, but no.
I'm okay with that.
I got a lot of sea stories. No, one particular story was in our startup phase. Well, we're basically still in the startup phase, but when we first started, 2016, 2017, it goes back to that labor shortage. Our hiring process wasn't established yet, in the sense of background checks, medical checks,
Mm-hmm.
and doing our due diligence for the folks.
You're not alone there, by the way. That's pretty typical for.
What is it?
You've been a bit, even guys that have been in business for a long time still don't have that under wraps. So it's
yeah,
you're definitely not alone there.
Okay, all right, and so what we had a word of mouth. One of our employees, hey, I know this other person who I work with, and he's a great worker, and and he knows how to do X, Y, and Z. And so where we failed at was we did not do a background check. We did not find out who the guy was. We basically hired him on the spot. And it turned out to be a nightmare. It turned out to be where he showed up to work one day. We hired him, had the right gear, had the right words to say to us. And because of the labor shortage, and I don't want to use that as an excuse, but we hired him. And maybe not 30 minutes later into the job, he claimed that he fell, hit his head.
Gosh.
And that turned into a claim, disability claim. It went for about a year, and that was our lesson learned. When it comes to hiring, don't take the shortcut and because one of your employees or he vouches for another person, it's just not worth it. And that was our lesson learned. And as a startup, it affected our X mod and so we're actually seeing those effects now. But it's a lesson learned. We moved forward, and that was one story that I share with people when they ask me what my biggest challenge was, which among other challenges, but that was one of our challenges, our lessons learned moving forward.
Yeah. No, that's a tough one to kind of learn on the fly, but I feel like that's probably one that most people, if they haven't already experienced,
Yep.
likely will at some point in their career.
Well, and go ahead, Edgar.
I was just going to say, and then we involved ourselves with now a HR partner, and so what happens now? It's the whole HR process, background check, medical check, since we're in the medical, since we do federal contracting, we do security background checks on everyone now. So it's definitely come a long way from when we started to where we're at now. So
I got to imagine that's probably a requirement, especially if you're doing stuff for the military. Are they asking for security and criminal background checks, and how does that work?
Yes. So if we do work on base, on any of the bases, it is a requirement. It is a background check. I'm not sure how thorough it is. I doubt that it's a whole 7-year background, but it is a background check. They go back, I want to say 5 years, and they do see if they have if people have any open tickets, infractions, warrants, and at the VA hospital it's the same process, especially for the work in the high security places where we've actually had employees not be approved, and we couldn't get them on that project. So if you're going to do federal work, be prepared to do background checks on your employees. And it's not just a basic employment type of background check.
Yeah, they get pretty
depending
thorough.
on the magnitude of the work and the area on that particular agency. It's going to be pretty thorough.
Got it.
And are you finding that are you guys required to sign any kind of non-disclosure agreements or anything like that when you're getting on base and doing any kind of work?
No.
Okay.
The non-disclosure agreement with the government, it falls under the FAR clauses. So on your procurement, when you're bidding a job, part of those 50 forms I mentioned is the FAR clauses, and one of those clauses, it talks about, non-disclosure. Now, it's not to say if we did work, for example, spa war, and we involved ourselves with some IT stuff. It's not to say, in addition to any FAR clauses that are out there, we would sign something. It happens.
Right.
For the most part, it's already included in your proposal.
Already included, yeah. So it sounds like, you mentioned these number of forms that you guys have to go through. What does your team look like? Is it just you and your partner that are going through all this? Do you have somebody else that, or another portion of your team that handles a lot of this procurement stuff, or?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough when we started FedVet, we involved ourselves with some of the government folks that left government, who didn't want to be in government no more, and we went ahead and brought them in. So our team consists of 6 folks at the office, and one of them is a prior contract specialist who, for like 15 years, that's all she did, and so now she's our subject matter expert, and basically she runs our procurement and deals with the proposal packages. It's a particular skill set.
Yeah, I have to imagine.
Yeah, it's really a niche. It's not something you would say, hey, I'm gonna start doing federal work. I'm gonna write my own proposals. She has 15 years experience, and she's just getting started. Like I mentioned before, depending on the type of contract that is, and the dollar value, or if it's an IDIQ or a fixed cost project, depending on what type of procurement the government puts in place, it's a different package for each one of those types. And so she is really a subject matter expert. My advice would be, if contractors out there are interested or wanting to do federal work, is first and foremost, find a subject matter expert in federal procurement.
Yeah, that sounds like that's pretty crucial there. Are you guys doing any work outside of the federal work, or do you guys stay busy enough with all the federal work that's?
Yes, it's all federal work. We have we found ourselves being extremely busy in federal. We wanted to try out state work, which we did last year, but the federal government keeps you busy. There's a lot of opportunity, especially veteran-owned businesses. If just being a veteran alone, and having your business certified to the VA, and having that set aside, it really does pay off, and there's opportunity. It can keep you busy year round.
That's awesome.
How many, kind of speaking to that, when you guys are bidding on a job, what's your closing ratio? Are you guys, is it more like 10%, or how does that look like for you guys?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right now we're about 10-2 ratio right now, currently. Okay. So for every 10 proposals we submit, we have about a two contract return. So yeah, about a 10-2 ratio.
Okay. Not too bad.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
No.
And what now, is? Go ahead.
Now on that 10-2 ratio is on the construction side. FedVet has we have a service division, and that's a little different. It's about a 2-to-1 ratio. We have a janitorial division, and that's another niche within the federal procurement world. So on construction, 10-2, services about 2-to-1.
Wow. Okay. And how often are you guys bidding on the services?
On the services, we probably bid in 2019, we bid about 5 services contracts. Those are mostly IDIQ type of procurements where it's a 5-year term.
Okay.
So,
Right.
for example, the janitorial IDIQ at the VA San Diego, we bid it, and it's a base plus 4. So we're involved there for the next 5 years. But the services is not as big as construction, but it is a higher ratio though.
So I would imagine you guys are self-performing, obviously, a lot of the service work with your own employees. And you did mention that you guys are subbing out some of the specialized trades in the contracting portion. How much of that construction work are you guys actually doing yourself versus subcontracting out? And piggybacking on that, what does your process look like when you're bringing on a sub? I mean, I know that the requirements by a lot of the different insurance carriers can be pretty
Sure.
stringent, and maintaining all that paperwork.
Sure.
Yeah, talk to us about how that looks.
Sure. So we currently perform about 60% of our work.
Oh, that's quite a bit.
40%. Yeah. The other 40% is subcontracted out. Now, it's not to say if we involve ourselves with an abatement type of contract, which we have in the past. It was 100% abatement, and that's 100% subcontracted out,
right.
and the rest of it is just a GC type role. But our bidding process, it starts off with the pre-qual. We also involved ourselves with wrong subcontractors in the past, where we didn't do our due diligence and actually had a pre-qual in place. And I would recommend any general contractor that's out there, before bidding even starts and you start asking subcontractors to look at work, let's have a pre-qual in place. And that pre-qual is basically going to ask you if that subcontractor is able to perform, if they have insurance. And the most important part of the pre-qualification with any subcontractor, I would recommend, is to make sure they're bonded. If they're not bonded, it just opens up another can of worms where you really don't want to move forward as a GC with a subcontractor that's not bonded. Currently, right now, our policy is to ask subcontractors to bond back over work if their proposals are over 150. So if it's 150, we ask them to bond, and we pay a premium of that, up to 1%, I believe. But the process is to get the pre-qual done first and foremost. That's the most important part, and then from there, it basically tells you if that specialty contractor can pick up a contract $2 million, $3 million.
Right. Perfect.
Well, on a daily basis, I'm sure. I mean, we've talked about some of the scars that you've picked up along the road, whether it's hiring subcontractors and pre-qualing them, or employees.
Sure.
But on a daily basis, what would you say is the biggest hurdle that you have to face, maybe every morning or every day?
I would say communication.
Okay.
Communication. Now, I did serve 20 years in the military, and for us in the service, communication was the key. Obviously coming out into the civilian sector, it's not quite as structured as the military, and so I'm used to a certain level of communication. And when we first started, we found that communication was our biggest obstacle, amongst other things, of course, but that was one of our top 3, is communication. If you can communicate up and down the chain of command, it's a recipe for success. Even if the project is bad, even if the project's going good, bad, regardless, communication would be the biggest obstacle. We have since put stuff in place. For example, We have this wonderful project management platform. It's available on our cell phones, on our tablets, at the office. So that just turned our business around.
Yeah, transparency.
So communication is our biggest.
Who do you guys use for that? Just because, I mean, like I said, we work with a ton of contractors, so knowing those kind of things. Who do you guys use for that management software?
Procore.
Okay, yeah.
We use Procore, and
they're actually pretty big, actually. Yeah.
It's a big platform, and we started with them in 2016, which at first it was over our budget. I mean, it was like, whoa, this is pretty expensive. But then looking, 12 months down the road at the investment side of it, it just makes everything so clear. I mean, it's a total management system, and for the size of our business, I've met other contractors, other GCs, same size, and I would recommend that Procore or any other type of project management platform where you not only have employees collaborating, but the client collaborating, the architects. I would recommend any type of system and get that in place. The ROI on that is just, I mean, you can't compare it.
From an organization standpoint, and like you said, communication standpoint, it just keeps everything so easy.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, great, Edgar. Well, hey, we really appreciate your time today. And maybe if you could give us give our listeners an idea of where to find you. And
sure.
Just in case the federal government's listening and they need a little bit of work done.
So we do have a website. It's www.fvcon.com. That's F as in Frank, V as in Victor, C as in Cat, O as in Oscar, N as in Nancy.com. If you go on Google search, if you type in FedVet Construction, general contractor, you'll find us on the web. Give us a call if you're in need of construction services. Give us a call, and we'll see if we can help you out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Edgar.
Yeah,
really appreciate your time today. And
thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good one, sir.
All right.
Have a good one. Yes, sir. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.